we'll be going ahead and talking about, again, decoding the Masters Union admission application. And, even in your questions, keep them, let's say, concerned towards admission and specifically the application process. In the last two webinars that we've had, we've discussed scholarships and financial aid, the various different types of scholarships in detail, as well as how to kind of approach the financial aid process. Before that, we talked about what we look for in an ideal Masters Union student. So more of the qualitative aspect of what we're looking for, qualities of humility, leadership potential, things such like that. So in this session specifically, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking specifically about the application form, and we'll be decoding it and seeing what we kind of have to offer. I can see some people are asking questions, which which leads me to believe that some of you are kind of engaging with us for the first time. So what's always helpful for me is to have a small hygiene check, and at the start it gives anyone who's kind of paying attention right now, within 5 minutes, all of the information that you need to know when it comes to all of these things listed on the screen with regards to Masters Union. So moving forward, the eligibility criteria that everyone knows, it's a postgraduate program in technology and business management. So ideally you would have completed your your undergraduate degree, or you are in your final year of your undergraduate degree. Apart from that, of course, there are people who are coming in with lesser work experience, more work experience. People are coming in as fresh graduates or seasoned professionals. That's depending on them. And then finally, obviously, as you know, we have an entrance examination criteria that everyone needs to have. And obviously, I'll be speaking about that more at length when, in the course of this session. The admissions process, just to kind of talk about that, there are two main stages of evaluation. First stage is looking at your completed and submitted application form along with the entrance examination scores. So if you choose to submit the CAT, GMAT, GRE, they'll probably be included as scores in your application form, but the MUBAT is conducted a bit later. So that those two elements are added then, and that's kind of the first bundle of evaluation when we look at to shortlist our students. People shortlisted there then move on to the interview stage, in which you are interviewed by masters across different industries, across different domains, and each has their own kind of unique interview style, where some might be more conversational, some might be more of a pressure cooker environment, but again, they're fantastic conversations nevertheless. So that's the interview process, and that's the second process of selection. So for someone who kind of makes it through both of these chains, I should say, they are selected into the program. So selected or accepted, I should say, waitlisted, as there's a waitlist as well, or you're rejected from the process. So that's the three outcomes that you can expect. Moving forward, the deadline, as I mentioned at the start, I don't know if that many people were there, but yeah, our round one deadline is on the 23rd of January, and that's coming up very, very soon. So midnight at 23rd Jan is when our application form will close. So I would encourage, and this is a kind of deep announcement from my end, is a lot of people I think I've spoken to over the last couple of days, they're kind of stuck on some of the sections we'll discuss, but the essays or the references or things like that, I would encourage you to plow through and start, completing your applications and submitting your applications. I think within the next couple of days, just to ensure that, you have enough time. If there's any kind of changes that you'd want to make, we definitely encourage for you to submit your application a couple of days before the deadline. So that having been said, the last element is, of course, the fees of the program, which is about 20 lakhs plus GST, kind of costing 23.6 lakhs for the 16-month experience. And the financing options as well, you can get financial aid from our partners, as well as apply for scholarships within the application form. Okay, so that having gotten out of the way, we'll get to the meat and bones of this session. We'll look at what we're discussing today primarily. So first is we'll go through the entire application form, and we'll see the different sections, and I'll give you my take on, what you should be putting there, and what eventually goes there, and of course, how you can kind of polish, what you've written, so that your application kind of shines a bit more in those particular sections. So section by section breakdown is what we'll be looking at over here. Second thing, and I think is a very deeply requested thing, I think I saw one of the questions also pop up at the start, is about the essay section. So we'll be talking about both the prompts, both the options, how you can think about them, what we're looking for, answering in a video or a text-based format. So those kind of things is something that also we'll be talking about. The references section, I was surprised, but I do see a lot of queries coming for this particular section as well, in terms of who to choose, what the process is like, when they're connected, how, how this kind of goes. So that's something that obviously we'll talk about. And finally, popular question that we get is about entrance examinations, cutoffs. So we'll be talking about the MUBAT, we'll be talking about the other things. So definitely, I would say, your questions will, I assume, be centered around this, but keep them rolling in regardless, so that we can have a kitty of questions to discuss once my presentation ends. Okay, so let's dive into it. The application form, and let's look at the sections of the application form. So the first section that you see, and everyone kind of, it's pretty obvious, is your applicant details, where we collect your personal information, contact details, and etc. It's pretty basic. I'm not going to spend much time on this. Second is the academic details. So in the academic details, we're looking at your academic background, whether that's your class 10, class 12, your undergrad, or if you've taken further courses, whether it's a master's degree or a PG program anywhere else. We encourage you to mention all of that information over here. So the academic details is a section that collects your academic background and gets insights about your academic background. Moving on to the extracurricular details section, we see people submitting various, I would say, very diverse kind of array of skills that they have, whether it's participating in more of the arts, whether it's music or dancing or painting or whatever, or participating in sports, leading football teams, leading cricket teams, or whether it's participating in social work, or it's a kind of whole array of different submissions that we've gotten from people in the extracurricular section. One thing I would definitely recommend is that you keep your authenticity in mind. You want to showcase those elements of your application, or you want to showcase those things in your application which kind of adds towards a linear story, right? If someone has been studying computer science or studying electrical engineering, for example, we want to know why you've kind of what you're doing outside the classroom experience. For example, what are you doing with your skills? Are you applying those skills that you learn in the classroom to a real world problem or a real world use case? And it could go for any kind of discipline, right? Like if you're an economics honors student in Delhi University, how are you using your time outside? And especially over the last 2 years, if there are any students here, freshers here, you'll know that the college experience is definitely, obviously, been modified a lot by virtual education. So people have had a lot more time and have been a lot more resourceful. So, definitely highlight that in the extracurricular details section. Talking about the entrance exam details, here is where you will indicate your preference of which entrance exam score you are submitting. So as we've discussed before, that it's also on our FAQ section. I'll be talking about this again. We do our own proprietary internal test, which is the MUBAT. The MUBAT is the Masters Union Business Administration Admissions Test. That's a pretty long full form. But what we see from there is, what we see in this section is the ability for candidates to select which exam that they want to opt for. So what that means is, if you'll see a distant array of exam options, and then you can select MUBAT. If you also want to submit your GMAT score, you can submit the GMAT, GRE, CAT scores. You have the options of doing that. So here is the section in which you will be submitting your entrance exam scores. I'll be talking about this more in detail. So, if there are any unanswered questions, just wait for about 5-10 minutes. I'm pretty sure we'll be getting this soon enough. Okay. So the next section is obviously the work experience section. You have an option of adding multiple entries and kind of showcasing different internships, different kind of work experiences, if you've kind of had different roles in the same company. So, just use this section to think about, again, what kind of, if you've had multiple jobs, what do I want to showcase here? What do I want to kind of add to my profile that gives it a very linear story, that provides a very authentic description of who I am as someone, like as a candidate, and what I would bring to the Masters Union cohort, as just to add diversity to that cohort. So I would encourage you to think about your work experience through this lens, but again, a pretty standard section of an application that collects your work experience, and for us to know about the same. Moving onwards, we have the reference section. The reference details is something that we collect. I'll be again talking about it more in detail when we get to the references section. But of course, we look at people that you've worked with in the past, whether it's professors, investors, mentors, managers, And we're looking only for the contact details over here. But again, more to come when we hit the references section. Okay, fantastic. Here are the essays, and the essays are obviously coming up next in terms of what we're going to discuss. But the essay section is a very important section in terms of our perspective on giving us an insight into, again, basic communication, critical thinking skills to see how you structure your argument, how you would kind of structure your thoughts, how would you kind of attempt this, how deeply you've engaged with the prompt. Those are the kind of things that I would say at a brief level before we dive into it specifically, you should consider in the essay section. You should also know that you have an option of either answering this through a text-based format, like typing out your answer, or you have an option of using a video. So you can upload your video of 2 minutes to length to any video hosting platform and then directly cross post that and paste that in the text box in the essay section that we have. So that's the essay section done. Now we come to the scholarship details, and in the scholarship, this is where you can indicate which scholarships you want to apply for. We have a list of scholarships, a description is given, but a detailed description of the same is given on our website, specifically on the admissions page. So I would encourage you go through that, you read that once, and you see which scholarship you are particularly suited for. And then you can select a maximum of 2 scholarships that you want to apply for from the scholarship section in the application form. Please note that for certain scholarships, for the tech leaders or the young leaders or the entrepreneurial scholarship, you will need to submit a supplemental essay. So there's instructions for that mentioned there, and there's a PDF or Word upload option over there that you'll have to use if you want to kind of apply for that particular scholarship. So those are those 3 scholarships there. Finally, and I would say this is a pretty overlooked and pretty important kind of section, which is the document upload section. And over here, as you can expect, we ask for your CV, we ask for your transcripts and other basic documents that any MBA institution would collect. But there's a very specific kind of question over here, or very specific kind of section over here within this document upload section called adding supplemental materials, so that if there's anything else that you want to let us know about your candidature, you can add that there. And we've got a request of people saying, we want to add multiple things, we want to add this, that. So what you can do is collate that all into one PDF, and make sure that you have maybe a header or an index that can tell us what we're about to expect in terms of a small portfolio, and you can attach that to the section over here in a collated one PDF kind of format. So that's the supplemental kind of information that you can attach. And it could be anything. If you want to let us more about your candidature, if you want to talk about a specific experience in in your life in detail, so feel free to use this particular section. Or sorry, even time gaps, I should mention that, if you want to address something that's there, but we anyway have a kind of check for that in our work experience section as well. But that's something that you should keep in mind with the document upload section. Finally, there's the declaration, again, a pretty basic and standard feature in most application forms, so don't think I need to kind of go over this too much. So anyway, I guess that was, I think, the majority and pretty much all of the section of the application form. I hope I was clear, and I've kind of gone through the entire section, and everyone is clear on how this application form is laid out and where the critical information is placed. Okay, moving on, I'm going to talk about the essays, and I think this is a very heavily requested topic in terms of trying to understand the prompts and trying to dissect or trying to understand how you can approach answering them. So anyway, I'm going to move on and and kind of move towards talking about number one, what we're looking for in terms of this. I had alluded to this before as well. We're looking for number one, your critical thinking skills and how deeply you can engage with the prompt, any of the options that are written there. That's number one. Number two is, again, your communication skills, how you're structuring and how clear and concise are your thoughts, your arguments, how's the structure of your essay if you're writing a text-based response, how's your, the structure of your video, how's your arguments when you're speaking, what are your diction skills. So those are the things that are where it's kind of a mixed package in terms of what we're looking for. But again, I would just say consistency, a clarity and conciseness, a brevity in your communication, something that's pointed and direct, even whether your response is in a text-based format or a video-based format. Just as I mentioned, the formats of submission, the text-based format is between 200 and 500 words for both of the prompts. And for the video-based format, you can upload a video to any hosting platform and copy-paste the URL or the hyperlink it on the text box of the application form. So that's in terms of the format of submission. And in terms of the video, it can't be more than 2 minutes long. So 2 minutes for the video and up to 500 words for any text-based response that you're going for. All right. Now we'll look at understanding the prompts. So we'll kind of dive a bit deeper into what we're looking for and maybe why our questions are, let's say, sort of non-traditional. So let's look at the first prompt. And as I've mentioned, each prompt has two options. The first prompt is mandatory. Okay, I'm repeating that again. The first prompt is essential that you have to complete. It's compulsory. So you have to complete the first prompt and either answer option one or option two. And let's look at option one and option two as well. And then I'll give you my tips for, or, just a basic understanding or approach of how to kind of go about this. The first one is, according to you, what are the ingredients to the Masters Union recipe and how do you think the dish tastes? Okay, that's number one. And the second option is, in a book about your life, there's a chapter titled My Masters Union Experience. And you have to write down a summary of that chapter. Okay. What I will think about if I'm a student and I'm looking at these questions, and again, a similar perspective from when we were designing this is, first of all, we know that you are applicants to this institution. People have not experienced the Masters Union experience already. And obviously you can't write about things that you're not kind of going for. What we're looking for is how you're contextualizing your perspective here and how you're contextualizing your output here. So your perception on how a Masters Union experience is going to be, your perception of what legacy you're going to leave behind after you complete Masters Union. First of all, even what outcomes that you're going to have within the Masters Union experience. So whether it's through the dish or the recipe kind of format, or the book, a chapter in a book kind of format, you'll see that this is, in my opinion, a more creative way of asking, why do you want to be here, or why do you want to be at this place, and what will you make out of it? So if you can think about it more in that lens, I would encourage that you look at how you can set context for, and set perspectives of your expectations, your time at Masters Union, and the outcomes at Masters Union. So it has to be centered around, of course, Masters Union is and that's something that, just to add to that point, that's something that we would appreciate for your authentic personality to shine through here as well. We've got some very interesting essays, if I must mention, and I would encourage this. People have been thinking quite out of the box and having quite creative ideas. So the first question, some person who's done hotel management has replied in an actual like recipe format, right? Talking about certain ingredients and then talking about how to make the dish as well. So that's something that's creative that we would appreciate and see. So it's not like you have to copy that or you have to kind of do it in a recipe format. It's your interpretation, your take on these options and how you want to submit it. That you have that 200 to 500 word limit or the video limit of 2 minutes for this, as well as, even the chapter in this book. Give us the title of this book, right? Give us some other chapter or give us some other very creative insight on, that we might not have thought of when expecting to read a response to this answer. So, think about it that way, think out of the box, try to see how you can, again, I'm repeating this again and again, but it's very, very important. Try to see how you can bring your most authentic self through. That's what we would definitely like, is that the person who is attempting the application is the person who has written these words, is the person who we will be interviewing, is the person who's going to join the batch. So your personality, your thoughts, your kind of, you as a person has to stay consistent and authentic throughout the entire process. I would say that's, obviously true for the essays, but still very, very true and consistent for the entire admissions process as well. So, and that was prompt number one. Okay. Now let's talk about prompt number two. I'd like to mention before that this prompt is optional. So if you only want to attempt prompt number one, that's mandatory, that's compulsory. So you do that and then you can move on. You can avoid prompt number two. But what we've been seeing is that, we've added quite interesting questions to prompt number two, and people kind of want to showcase a different side to their thinking and, talking about what we're looking for as well. I guess it's better to kind of first get into the options and read the prompts and then talk more about the tips over here as well. So here's the first one. The Firefly algorithm is inspired by the flashing behavior of fireflies. Which aspect of nature will you draw on to create intelligence and insights for business, and how will you do it? That's the first. And the second, so it's a pretty long one. FinTech, EdTech, Biotech, PropTech. The world has seen many neologisms in the recent past. You're tasked with creating your own by appending the word tech to whatever word that you choose. You have to tell us about that industry and how the inclusion of technology has influenced the same. So, okay, coming to tips to approach this question, why have we asked these questions? Primarily two things. I would say number one, and I can kind of split my answers for both the options that we're looking for. So, for number one, actually, something that's common to both is a very strong problem solving skill set, right? To see uh, the first one could be both at a macro or micro level, but the second one is obviously more at a macro level. So seeing a problem solving skill set, how you would approach these problems, how you would approach doing this. And again, harking back to what I spoke about just a few minutes ago about being creative, we've seen people use, submit illustrations, people submit additional mathematical equations, people submit code. People are being extremely creative when responding to these questions. So just another by way that there is a PDF section that you can upload additional materials, whether you want to do an illustration or whether you want to write some additional stuff. So that's something that we're seeing coming in from our applicants as well. So at least for the first prompt, what I want to say is how we're thinking about this is how familiar are you with systems thinking, right? And looking at systems or looking at frameworks, especially across, cross-functional applications across different domains. So whether that's picking up another aspect of nature, and it could be absolutely anything, right? Obviously it's very, very vast, and what you can pick up from, there's many kind of examples of this already that exists, but we would encourage you to be creative and try to create something of your own. So you draw on that aspect and you see, just as a framework, can that be applied to a business? Can this, operational framework, can this structural framework be applied to running a business, and what intelligence and what insights will that create, and how could I possibly do this? So again, I'll repeat that: a cross-functional application of frameworks from different subjects or different disciplines is what we're looking for, if people can actually do that over here. Coming to the second one about neologisms, see, this thing is something that we're definitely seeing is a more popular option that people are attempting from the optional essays. Over here, again, we're looking at a macro view of how, number one, actually, before that, we're looking at your interests. So, we're asking you to create a word plus tech at the end of the word to see, what industry comes out of it. So I'm assuming people would want to write about stuff they're passionate about, or the sector or the industry that they're passionate about, and how tech has influenced that. So number one obviously would be your interests and how much you know about that particular sector. And the second is your understanding of how technology would impact a particular domain or a particular sector or a particular product or a particular organization, and how it would transform processes, if how it would make things more efficient, how if it would increase revenue, would it decrease costs, like those things are completely up to you. So this is again more systems level thinking, more macro, to see how your interests can be merged with your understanding of how technology changes, to then finally come up with a response to this question. And as I've mentioned, 200 to 500 words or a 2-minute video, it shouldn't be that hard for our applicants to kind of attempt. But I'm assuming, this is where your creativity would shine. But again, I repeat once more, it is an optional section. So if you do not want to attempt it, there is no downside or, like negative marking if you don't attempt the same. So that just being, just letting you know that. Okay, so that is the essay section. Now let's move swiftly along to the references section. So the references section, as I said, I was a bit surprised earlier about us getting so many questions on it. So I'd like to use this platform for everyone on this call just to clear the air for everyone. So in the references section, first think about how I can choose my referral. Who I should think about is someone who's worked close with me. And the emphasis in this sentence is on the word worked and close. So number one, it should be a manager or an immediate supervisor, could be, someone in the upper management of that firm as well. So that's number one. Number two could be a professor that you've worked with, someone that you've done work with or research with in university. Especially if you're a fresher, I think that would be a pretty apt option to use professors as your referrals. Third could be, I know, angel investors or mentors that you've had at work, that people who are in senior positions and know you closely as well. So these three things definitely, there's a exhaustive list on our website as well for you to check out on who you can reach out to. But again, use your own discretion about who to select for this. Why? Because we will be reaching out to them either through a conversation on the telephone or a questionnaire that we send to them. So please choose people who are, who can actually have this conversation or reply to an email, reply to this questionnaire about your strengths, your weaknesses, your previous work experience, for example. So choose people who can actually do that for sure. And more logistical related stuff. Actually, yeah, let me get this out of the way. This is a references section. This is not a letter of recommendation section. So this is not about collecting LORs, which are written documents about your candidature from your managers. You do not need that. And I'll repeat that, you do not need letters of recommendation. We need references in the references section. Your references only need the contact details, which is your email, your name, your mobile phone, etc. Those kind of things. And of course, you need to inform your referral that you've recommended them about you've used their name as your referral in the masters union admission application. Again, coming to things to keep in mind, just because I want to keep this as explicit as possible, just for everyone to know. Number one, please, you do not need any physical or digital letter of recommendation. Nothing needs to be typed by the person that you're choosing. It is a referral. It is not a letter of recommendation. All you need to do is let them know that you've chosen them and that you've put their contact details in the Masters Union application form. We will connect to them after round one. So if you're waiting for people to get back or do this, we would highly encourage that speed through, optimize this process. Let them know, because you will not need to submit any letters of recommendation. So you will just need to submit their name and complete the application. During the evaluation process for completed applications is when we reach out, when the mail gets triggered to reach out to your referrals. It's not happening before. So for people who are interested or concerned about this, just I hope this is clear to everyone that you have to complete your application, and then only we will be doing our ref checks, and not before. As soon as you enter their name and move on to next, there's no email that is triggered or phone call that is triggered, for people's kind of consideration, just for them to know. And as I mentioned, we'll be reaching out through a telephonic call or a questionnaire for them to answer. So please choose people who can actually, who have some time at least to respond to a telephonic call or a questionnaire or an email about yourself. So keep that in mind, or you can inform them when you are telling them that you've chosen them for the references section. Okay, moving on swiftly, we have the MUBAT. And I'm talking about this before we move on to the other entrance exam kind of criteria. And we'll probably get towards the end of the presentation after that. But I assume most of the questions that are kind of rolling in, I'm not checking anything right now, but I'm assuming questions that are rolling in will obviously either have been covered or will about to be covered. So as I said, Masters Union admissions test is the MUBAT. It's an internal test that we conduct. Just a bit more about the things. Number one is the registration and the fees. Just to make things clear, everyone who completes and submits their application is eligible, or is registered for the MUBAT as well. There is no additional application fees that you need to pay for the MUBAT. Okay, I hope that's clear. I'm just repeating that. There's no additional application fee or no additional link or nothing that you need to do. All you need to do is submit your application and you will be registered for the MUBAT. You'll find that when the exam time rolls down, you'll go to your application and you'll see another section over there called the MUBAT. So you can directly access the exam from the same portal that you filled up your application on. So no fees, and you're automatically registered if you complete your applications and submit your applications before the deadline, of course. So I hope that is clear. Timelines of when the exam will be conducted, we are thinking 7 to 10 days right after the round one deadline. And so thinking the last weekend of January is when this examination will be conducted. We wanted to let you know that the exam is an online exam that you can take from your laptop or desktop, and you have the option of choosing a slot or a time slot in a day, whether it's morning, afternoon, evening, for the particular day in which the exam is going to be conducted. There will be further instructions that will be going only to the people that have completed their applications, right? So people who've completed and submitted their applications, MUBAT instructions will be going to them in terms of how to approach the test, or more instructions for the test. Okay, in terms of logistics, there's a couple of things to keep in mind. As I said, you'll need access to a laptop or a desktop. You'll need access to a microphone as well, similar to how this is working. And you'll need a secure internet connection for the period of the test as well. Test is 90 minutes long. And again, we test across your verbal aptitude, analytical skills, and as well as business acumen. coming more to that stuff as well. But one question was if students were allowed to use calculators in this examination. So you're not allowed to use calculators, and they won't even be required. I don't think it's something that will be necessary. You can just use some blank sheets of paper. We use a particular software to administer this test, which is a proctoring software. And what this does, it limits your screen to just being the exam for the 90 minutes. You can't access any other web browser or any other instant messaging service, for example, on your computer or your laptop at that point in time. It's only dedicated to the MUBAT examination. So, keep that in mind in terms of the logistics of the MUBAT. In terms of preparation, so as I said before, this is not an exam we are looking for that is an extremely difficult and intense exam that needs 6 months of preparation or needs you to leave your job to prepare. So of course I would not say it is the most rigorous management exam you will find. Anyone who has a good grasp of basic mathematical principles in class 9, 10, 11, 12, basic mathematical principles there, as well as someone who is good with reading good quality literature, whether that's articles from good websites or good news sources, for example, or reading again, fiction or non-fiction, reading research papers. People who are again comfortable with comprehension, analyzing, say, the tone of an argument, analyzing what the author means by this particular thing. Even in the analytical ability, people who are good with data, people who are good with, again, basic mathematical principles and applications. So that's something that I would say is sufficient for attempting the MUBAT examination. There will also be a subjective kind of case test that will be required to be answered, which is again for us to check more of your business acumen. And that's again something that we'd like to see organically. It's nothing that I would say you really need to prepare for, apart from knowing, say, general events or general things happening around, and you probably know more about or can give more perspectives in your answer for the same thing. But yes, in terms of prep, all you need to know is, number one, we'll be testing analytical, verbal, and business acumen. So, a basic knowledge of high school mathematics, say a fair ability to read and do comprehension and have good grasp of the language. And the final thing would be, how aware you are of the world, and you say, your business acumen accordingly will be tested in this case-based method. Scores and cutoffs. So there is no cutoff for the Masters Union, the MUBAT exam. We don't declare any cutoffs for any of our exams. I'll get to it later. But the the scores are reported to you, and that cutoff is kept internal. Why it's kept internal is because it is used as a parameter that is weighted, along with several other things, as including your essays, including your application form, academic background, work experience. You know the drill. So along with every other element in your application, it is weighted and eventually gives us a kind of score of an applicant. So there's a lot of many different things there. It's not that if I don't get this score, then I'm eliminated from the process. There is no active cutoff for the MUBAT, is all you should know. Okay, the final slide is talking about other entrance examinations. So for this, I guess, most of the questions have been answered, and we've kind of also covered this topic as well at the start. But we are taking the GMAT, GRE, and CAT only. We're not taking any other entrance exam. I saw this question at the beginning as well. We do not accept NMAT scores, right? People might be saying that, hey, in the NMAT portal, I can see an option of Masters Union there. So, yes, that does currently exist. We've reached out to GMAT for the same, and that will be phased out in the upcoming academic cycle. What you should know is that people over the last two cohorts, they had to do mandatory, MUBAT was mandatory to them. So even if they had an NMAT score, people were coming in and had to do the MUBAT as well. So people who are coming in with an NMAT score only will have to sit for the MUBAT examination. Everyone sits for the MUBAT examination apart from the people who have valid scores for GMAT, GRE, and CAT. GMAT, GRE, the validity period is about 5 years, and CAT, we accept the most recent examination that has happened in 2021 in November. So that's in terms of the examination scores. And just trying to make things very explicit and very clear. So there are three scenarios, okay? Four actually, but three is, I think, three top scenarios that I can see for the entrance examinations over here. Number one is if someone is applying and they've not taken any entrance exam, then they'll have to sit for the MUBAT. If someone is applying, that's number one. Number two, if someone is applying and they've taken any other exam apart from the GMAT, the GRE, or the CAT, again, valid scores, then you will have to sit for the MUBAT. Okay. The only scenario in which you can avoid the MUBAT is if you have valid scores for these examinations. And the third point is most importantly, even if you have a GMAT score, a GRE score, and a CAT score, you can still choose to sit for the MUBAT if you think your GMAT, GRE, or CAT score is not competitive enough. And that's something that we see is, you know, some people, it's completely up to your discretion. Some people who feel that their scores are low in the CAT or GMAT or GRE, you can also select CAT, GMAT from the entrance examination section in the application form itself. So you can indicate your preference there. You're submitting your CAT score as well, or you're submitting your GMAT score as well as the MUBAT exam. You've indicated a preference that you want to sit for that examination as well. So, we are giving you that option to still sit for that examination. And if anyone is on this call and is prepared for the GRE, if prepared for the GMAT, prepared for the CAT, you should be in a good place for the MUBAT examination as well. And cutoffs, as I mentioned for the MUBAT section before, we do not objectively release cutoffs. So, that is something that I would tell you once more, that these examination scores also are part of, they're weighted as parameters that eventually go into giving you a score at the end of the day, through which we do our evaluation process. So those things are kept internal, what our criteria are and what our parameters are for evaluation. But if you want one figure, and maybe I can give this to you because it's on our website, if you've kind of gone through it, you know it already, is that our average GMAT across the first batch and then across the second batch is about 705 to 710. So I would say for people who have GMAT scores with them, if you have 720, 730 plus, you're in a pretty good place. And for everyone here, you could say, convert it to an equivalent of that particular exam that you're thinking about. So if a 710 is a GMAT average, then that could be about a 325, 330 in a GRE, or that could be about a 96, 98 percentile in a CAT. Try to, that is completely at your discretion. These are not, these are loose figures that I'm throwing around. This is not gospel. But keep this at your discretion of what your examination score is, and it is completely up to you whether you choose to supplement that if you feel it's not competitive, if you choose to supplement that with the MUBAT, or if you choose to apply with it alone. So yes, that is the story on cutoffs. That's the story on the other entrance examinations.